This episode is made possible by our generous patrons. To learn more, visit patreon.com/inktofilm.
Welcome to the Inktofilm podcast, where we read the book
and then see the movie.
I'm James.
And I'm Luke.
And this week, we discuss Ramin Bahrani's 2018 sci-fi film, Fahrenheit 451. Let's save a book and upload it to the Dark Nine. Hey everybody, so we watched Fahrenheit 451, HBO's feature, and that's kind of capping off our coverage of Fahrenheit 451. We did 2 book episodes and now this one.
Yeah, those book episodes were a lot of fun. It was cool to revisit that old classic, which I found to be really powerful and applicable to today, a lot of the things that are going on. There are certain parts of it that didn't age very well, but you can get back to those, if you want to check out our previous 2 episodes, you can see our thoughts about Ray Bradbury's book, but this episode's all about the movie.
So the kind of the format of what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to talk about the filmmaker a little bit and then do non-spoiler. So if you haven't seen it, you can kind of get our thoughts on it, and then we'll jump into a spoiler section. We'll let you know when that is, so if you don't want to get spoiled.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the filmmaker, Ramin Bahrani,
who I don't know, maybe I have seen something of his. I'm curious to find out. I feel like I don't know this person.
So I have heard of him before. I haven't actually seen any of his work, but there's a couple that I've been wanting to get back and watch. He's an American director and screenwriter, and some of his films are Man Pushed Cart that's 2005, Chop Shop was 2007, and then 99 Homes was in 2015.
Yeah, I don't know any of those movies.
99 Homes was the one that when it came out, I was like, oh, I should definitely see that, and I heard that it was pretty good. I knew that Chop Shop was like a good movie that people liked, but in my research, I actually found that Roger Ebert listed Bahrani's film Chop Shop as the 6th best film of the 2000s.
Wow.
Yeah, and he hailed Bahrani as the director of the decade.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Okay, so he did have like that. That seems like when he first came onto the scene, he kind of came in with a splash, a little bit.
Yeah, it seems like he had some really good work early on, and I mean 99 Homes was 2015, so I heard that was pretty good when that came out. So yeah, I was basically unfamiliar with Bahrani, and I'm interested to watch 99 Homes and Chop Shop, but all in all, I think we should just start talking about his movie here that we just watched, Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
So these will just be general thoughts. I'm going to let you have the floor first. I want to hear your thoughts, general thoughts, no spoilers for now.
Yeah, we have not talked about this at all prior to this recording, so I don't know exactly how you're going to feel about this movie. For me, it was a bit of a flop. It had a lot of passion. It had a lot of anger behind it. It felt like it had something it really wanted to say, but it also felt jumbled. It felt a bit confused at times. There's also, I think, one of the key things for dystopian fiction is I have to believe the world, and I never quite got there with this world. So that always kind of kept me at arm's length. Like, I was very aware that I was watching a movie. I struggled to get immersed in it. So you combine those things, that kind of confusion and then kind of the disjointed nature of it. I think there was some like heavy-handed messaging or heavy-handed dialogue. And then you add in the world that didn't quite pass the smell test for me as far as like being a real world. Yeah, it equals a movie that just didn't land for me, unfortunately. And it's a bummer.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, man. I got to be honest. I was really looking forward to this, and I like Michael B. Jordan. I like Michael Shannon. But for me, it was just, I guess, the excitement of reading the book and then going into this. My expectations were really high, and like you said, it was just like disengaged. Like I was never able to connect to the characters. It's kind of an updated version of the story. So there were like ways that I could see that Bahrani was trying to make like commentary on things that are going on now. But yeah, for me, it's just, it ended up not feeling nearly as important or like weighty as the book did because I mean we talked about it at the end of our book coverage. It was just like it left me feeling without any spoilers, it left me feeling like a certain type of way. It left me feeling
type of way, not a good way.
It left me feeling down. So
what did you think of our leads? I guess we got Michael B. Jordan, Michael Shannon, and then Sofia Boutella.
For me, Michael Shannon was still Michael Shannon in this movie. I think he was somewhat muted I feel like he had a certain material to work with, and he did a great job with what I think he was given. I think he's like one of the greatest character actor like villains that we have right now. He's solid.
Yeah, Michael Shannon, I thought, I mean, I think he was the highlight of the movie for me. I think he was compelling. I think they added some nice depth to that character that was maybe a little more flat actually in the book, or just a little bit more one note. Now there was some interesting complexity to the character in the book. I don't want to take away from that, but they really like amped that up in the movie, and I found that pretty compelling. And then a lot of his scenes, he just like he does menacing so well. He does kind of crazy pretty well in a certain way, like a controlled like insanity. I don't know. There's a lot to like, I think, about Michael Shannon's performance, and if you're going to see the movie, I think that's a good reason to.
He was a highlight for me. I do think that so far we've started, and I don't want people to get too down on this coverage, because like there are redeeming qualities I feel in this movie. I think it was shot very well. I think there was a lot to like in it, but for me, these things going forward are most of the things that are sticking with me. On to Michael B. Jordan. What were your thoughts on Michael B. Jordan?
Yeah, I mostly liked his portrayal, but I think my problems with Montag in this movie were more how the character was written, and that it felt, when I talked about disjointed earlier, it felt like there was elements of backstory that they were trying to make important and like explain his actions without, getting into specifics. It never really came together, so he felt very his actions felt unearned, I guess, narratively. And so I struggled with that character some, and I don't blame Michael B. Jordan though, because I think he did a pretty good job with what he was given.
I mean, I agree with you, and for the most part, I think he did a good job. But I have to say that there were times that I was like, "What are you doing, man?" Like, I felt like he was. I don't know. I haven't seen Michael B. Jordan like that in a movie very often, so I was kind of surprised to see. It was just like,
what do you mean?
He was just like, I know that maybe this was the intent, but like early on there was like no emotion for like the first like 30 minutes. But it wasn't like no emotion like I'm like crazy. It was like I couldn't get a read on him. I couldn't attach to him. But I will, like, as the movie progressed, I think that they added a little more depth, and it may have been intended to be that way, but I just felt like it wasn't one of my favorite performances that he's ever had.
Oh, I mean, we've seen way better out of him. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, and just because something's intended doesn't necessarily mean it works either, right? Like, it could still be intended and not work. Yeah. So, yeah, I get you there.
The other character is Clarisse, Sophia Boutella. How did you feel about Clarisse? And I guess without being spoilery, we can say that her role has been changed a little bit. So how did you feel about that?
Yeah, we're going to have to revisit this, I think, in the spoiler section, because her character was changed pretty dramatically. What I will say is that I thought she did a good job making us like a character that we probably shouldn't like. And so, like, the actress, I think, really brought a certain, I don't know, likability to the character. So, in limited screen time. And that's tough to do. So, I'm going to give her credit for that. So, yeah, I thought she did a fine portrayal. I have problems with the character, how it was written.
I agree. I feel like a lot of this comes down to material, because I almost want to blame some of these actors for some of the things that are going on, but you have to take a step back and realize, like, the material that they're given, I felt like she was I mean, there was a lot of other minor actors, but of these three, she was definitely my least favorite. I never bought her, really. I just never thought that she was a character, an interesting character in really any way. It's like a character we've seen a million times, and nothing was new, and she didn't have any agency, and I don't know. It was, like I said, mostly comes down to writing, but I don't know. It was just all in all not for me.
I think I would put her on the level with Michael B. Jordan as both being okay. Like I said, to me, the only standout was Michael Shannon in this movie.
Right. Okay, so before we get into spoilers, I wanted to ask you, because so far we've been kind of down on the movie, I wanted to ask you some positives, non-spoiler, just general positives that you noticed throughout.
Okay. Like I said at the top, passion. I think this movie wants to say something. It desperately wants to. I think it is trying to make a social commentary about today. I think it's trying to say positive things about needing to have a preservation of literature and the right to, free speech and the freedom to read. All these things from the book, like it really wants them in the movie. And okay, so the bad part of that is that it doesn't necessarily work. But to linger on the good, that to me makes me think the movie means well, which I approve.
Yeah, I do agree. That was most of my highlight, was just that I can definitely see what he was trying to do with the social commentary he was trying to make. Obviously, like the emoji thing and the idea that like some works were hyper condensed and had like emojis as the way that you would read them. I felt like there was some definitely cool ideas. Some of the technology was really cool looking.
I agree. There was a lot of good ideas. There were certain things about their vision of the future that rang true. The sort of live stream technology, which they put on their social media and stuff, where Montag is giving this like talk about burning books and all this stuff, and like there's just emojis popping up all over the screen as people like it and whatever. That was very timely, I think, to our culture, and that stuff all really worked and was some of the highlights, and that was an interesting shift, because none of that's in the book. That's kind of like an updated detail. I did notice this dystopian world they're setting up. There was a lot of cool stuff about it. Cool in dark way. There was reference to a second civil war, which was pretty frightening, but also feels possible. So it's dark. So like that cautionary tale feeling you get from the book was definitely present here. But the world, like I don't know if you noticed, like it's always nighttime when we're in the city.
Yeah.
Everything's dark. Everything feels very goth, or like modern goth. I don't know what it is. Like the aesthetic was very dark, and so much so that it was distracting, and it just didn't feel legitimate to me. And that's part of the reason why I said like I struggled to get into it. The world didn't feel lived in, and the houses these people lived in didn't feel like houses. They felt like movie sets. And that was something that, like I said, I kept not believing that I was in a real place. I kept thinking I'm in a movie. And then I don't know if you noticed, but there was a bunch of like animals would just pop up on screens and stuff. And I couldn't help but think that they were desperately trying to connect this movie to Blade Runner, the Blade Runner series, which we covered, and loved the hell out of. But it was a very like, hey, think about Blade Runner when you see this owl that pops up randomly.
Right. They were definitely trying to get some of that like noir, like like nighttime neon, like neo noir type thing.
But it wasn't earned though, and it was very like I don't know. It felt obvious to me that they were trying to get you to think of those better, superior movies.
This movie is supposed to be about how society has gone wrong, and it's like they've gone down a path that they can't come back from for now, and they've done it to themselves. And in this situation, like I didn't feel any of that. We didn't see enough people being affected by these things. It was literally just Montag, Beatty, and Clarisse, and I don't really know what else.
Random background characters who don't do anything.
And so it just felt like it was so contained that, like you said, it just didn't feel very believable. And I think that's what it comes down to, because like we said before, I just couldn't connect, and it was I think that had a lot to do with it.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a bummer too, because like we've said, we both really enjoyed the book, and I it was my second time reading it, and I loved revisiting it, and I had high hopes for this movie, so I wanted it to be good. And like I don't enjoy coming on here and tearing apart a movie or shitting on a movie. Like I am someone who believes in being positive and supporting the things that you love. So when I love something, I want to like shout it from the mountaintops, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast. But I also got to keep it real and be truthful. And when I don't enjoy something, you know what I mean. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. So,
right.
That being said, like I have to,
Yeah, I think we're definitely trying to give constructive criticism. Like we're not here to just like tear a movie apart and say that it's bad because of this, because people did work on this, and it was
Sure.
a lot of people toiled over it. So I completely agree. It's not fun, but we got to keep it real, and we gotta say what we feel. So I think this is a great point to move into the actual spoiler coverage and really dive into it. So if you haven't seen it yet, come back later after you have. Or
if you don't care, just listen on. If you decided you're not going to see it and you just want to hear us talk about it, stick around.
All right, so Fahrenheit 451 spoilers. I think there's a couple things that we need to address right away, because it's like burning things that we need to talk about. But after that, I think we'll go more chronologically.
Okay, go hit me with it.
Okay, this DNA thing, that's not how DNA works, right? I know enough about DNA and information technologies and stuff like that to know that I don't know everything,
You know what I mean? Like, to know that there's a lot of unexplored stuff. And I'm not ready to sit here and say 100% certain that something like this could never happen. But I will say this movie does a terrible job at making you believe it and giving you any sort of science behind it at all. It's very ham-fisted. It's very, hand-wavy. The premise is that there's a piece of DNA in a bird that they implanted in there, and it holds all of the information of the internet and all movies and all books and all this other stuff.
Now that is possible because
omnis,
we know,
right?
But we know people are doing that. Like, people have done that and like put things into the like genetic code of other things like that. I believe that's like a thing that's actually happening or people have done. But my thing is like, as
I don't know, man. Maybe.
I mean, I believe so. I could be totally wrong, but I thought I had heard of that a similar thing to that happening where people are storing information in DNA. Like people are storing information in DNA. But the thing of it is like, if you store that DNA, if you're putting that into a bird's DNA, isn't that going to cause genetic mutations and stuff? Like, I don't think that you can change genetic code like that and then not have.
We need a geneticist on here to tell us. Yeah, because like, I don't know. And then the other thing is like, if you implant it in one bird, the idea that it's going to spread to like everything, that seems like a huge leap. The omnis in general derails the whole movie. It wasn't like it was smooth sailing before that, but the omnis to me just broke the movie because it made everything nothing made sense anymore. All the actions everyone were taking didn't make sense anymore. We
talked about in our book episode how we wanted this movie. We wanted the ending to have a similar bang to the end of the book, and I was so disappointed. I predicted
that it wasn't going to, though.
Yeah, you did.
I was right in that regard.
But I was so bummed out that they went so, like, it was so, like, minuscule feeling. Like, I was just like, this isn't, it just didn't feel nearly close to what I was expecting and what I was hoping for. For me, the DNA thing, just the third act kind of fell off.
I mean, it introduces a lot of problems. Okay, so it has all information on it, right? In this bird. Do you remember, like, they were trying to do something with the bird? Like, give it to somebody to, like, extract the DNA or something?
I think so, yeah. I think they were planning on storing it. They wanted, like, all animals, everything to have
and we're skipping ahead to the end, I know. But whatever. For this movie, let's just jump around.
Yeah.
Montag releases the bird out the skylight, and it flies off, and then we see at the end it's joined all the other birds, and I think the heavy implication is that all's good now. The information's going to proliferate throughout all of nature. That's what I got, at least.
Right.
Because it was very bright, and you actually see the sun for, I think, the first time in the movie. And I was like, what the fuck? Why didn't they do that? There was nothing stopping them from doing that. They had the bird in the cage for no reason if that was going to happen.
Well, I think the original idea was they put like the little tracker thing on it, and like they were gonna try to get it to wherever it needed to go.
Apparently, all it needed to go was out the window because it was gonna be fine. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's not hard. Open the cage. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
Like I said, man, the omnis just doesn't make sense to me. And then also, it invalidates a lot of what they were saying. Like, she says at one point, when that lady died, the Grapes of Wrath died with her. She was the last copy.
Right.
Yet, all information is in that piece of DNA, so she's not the last copy. That is on there. So that's not true. It's a lie, or it's like, I don't get, like, it invalidates so many things. It's
maybe
weird.
Like all information, you know what I mean? Like all the information that they had compiled in their little database or anything.
It takes all the teeth off of the burning of the books. Like, it makes it so that all doesn't matter.
Right, but the thing is, that's
nothing's actually been lost.
Well, that's exactly how I feel about a certain other subject is they're living in this age, right, where there's computers and they're uploading everything. Yeah. Do you know how much, like, how many ebooks you could put on a flash drive?
Yeah.
Like, a ridiculous amount. So it's like all these books that they're saving and stuff, why aren't they just storing all of it on flash drives and stuff and just like running around with flash drives rather than trying to have libraries full of books? And I understand like physical copies have like a certain like importance to them, but
I mean, you could have addressed that more by saying that there was like some sort of virus that was being, that was on the Nine or on the Dark Nine, that, there was like hackers that were corrupting files and like stuff like that. You could say that because I like the idea that the hard copy of a book is totally disconnected from technology, and so in some sense it is kind of protected from it. Like, you have to come physically burn it to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, there should be a bunch of jump drives and stuff, but I don't know. There's something kind of cool about the idea of like totally analog, no internet, books, physical books, like that is a way to protect yourself from cybercrime and hackers and viruses and all that stuff.
I just feel like once you get them on the flash drives, you don't connect to the internet anymore if you don't need to. You know what I mean? I just mean like for the convenience sake of carrying this information instead of having to memorize all these books and stuff.
Well, yeah, and then there could be like, they could have, maybe these firemen have devices. I mean, we assume that they do, although we just see them kind of smashing things with like a axe. But it could be like, some sort of thing that wipes drives if it gets near it, like that kind of stuff.
Right.
There definitely would be ways to combat it. But yeah, it doesn't matter because all of that doesn't matter if all data is on this thing anyway. So
yeah. Okay. So I feel like we've hit on some stuff that is there anything else you want to touch on before we try to go through the beginning?
It's upsetting. I mean, I have a million little things, so let's just start going through whatever we want to talk about.
Pop back to the beginning a little bit. So the first part is basically like Montag enjoying his life, and he's going and doing his job and burning books, and really the only time we start to see any conflict, we do see him like, I guess we get a glimpse of him being in conflict with like the VHS tapes and all that.
Well, there's a boxing match early with Beatty. It's our introduction to Beatty, and I just want to say I like Michael Shannon. I think he's an intimidating dude, but there's no universe in which I think he could beat Michael B. Jordan in a boxing match.
No way.
No way.
That's Creed,
dude.
Man. You can't beat Creed.
It's Creed. It's fucking
Killmonger.
Like okay, yeah. You're gonna beat him, Michael Shannon. I don't think so. But whatever. I did like that he said, he loses a tooth, and they say something like, "We'll have the doctor print you a new one." I thought that was cool because I think that is a believable step in technology that we could get to.
I'm sure somebody could do that now if you really needed it 3D printed.
Well, it depends. Are you 3D printing a fake tooth? That is probably doable now. What's interesting is one day the idea that we could 3D print a real tooth.
Right.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I still don't understand, like, people talk about, like, 3D print. This is getting off topic, but how do you 3D print food? Somebody was telling me that you can, like, they're trying to start 3D printing food.
Yeah, man, you have to, it's, what are you printing it out of is going to be the question. And it's going to be like protein, like some sort of proteins. I don't know the science behind it enough, but I think a lot of it comes down to what is your materials you're working with at the beginning. And if you can get the right set of materials, it's whatever goes into food.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you're taking that raw material and you're combining it genetically and whatever into a way that is food. Like they're already making artificial meat and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it is something that they're doing, and I think it's a great way to move because if we can move away from farms and slaughtering cows by the millions and instead have 3D printed steaks that taste identical, sign me up.
For sure.
Anyway, that's kind of unrelated to this, but
hey man, I'm just trying to find
cool
I know
sci-fi ideas, right?
You don't want to talk about 3D printing for half an hour?
Yeah, it's such a big part of this movie.
So I wanted to talk about how early on the firemen are kind of these, like, they're almost like celebrities or what I thought they were similar to was like they were like sports athletes because they had like their social media and they like got really pumped up and got each other pumped up to go out and burn these books, and they had their song, their Salomon.
That was, oh my God, the song. Every song. There was like multiple chants and songs in this movie, and they were all terrible.
Well, how
they were
about
all
when
super cringy?
Did you buy in when Clarisse and Michael and Montag were playing the harmonica?
Oh my God, I wrote down in my notes least sexy instrument possible for this situation. Here, try this out. like that's not.
Why didn't she just pull out like a full like saxophone or something?
I don't know, man. Saxophones are better than harmonicas.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like the saxophone is very sexy, right?
Man, it was just that. Yeah. Anyway, back about the firemen though. I do want to give them credit because I think that's a cool idea. Right. What I want from an idea like that though is to see personalities in our firemen. To see that, think about like a movie like Predator, where every person in that small group of soldiers stands out with his own personality. You kind of get to know each character. Mm-hmm. In this movie, there's Montag, there's Beatty, and then there's Douglas, who's like forgettable and terrible. And then every other fireman is worse than that because they're literally nothing. They're just faces in a crowd. And I don't buy, like, I want to see personalities, you know what I mean? I want to see why these guys are popular. I want to see each guy have his own brand, his own way he burns things or whatever it is. Like, you could have fun with that. And like, this movie desperately needed to have a little fun. because there was very little fun to be had.
I like the idea though. Like you said, of the social media aspect as well, because it's like that kind of, we see it now, but that kind of influence can cause people to do crazy things, and you could totally see somebody buying into this even more because of a social media aspect and people cheering him on every day and being there like fans and all that. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty believable, and I thought that was a nice little update to the. It
was a good idea. I just wanted more of it. I wanted him to do more with it, run with it a bit more.
I agree.
Also, we find out that the name of this group of rebels is the Eels.
Right.
And, okay, it's, it reminds me of, like, the Fireflies from Last of Us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with them having this name. What I don't understand is why they are called the Eels.
Right. I was waiting for that the entire movie.
I don't think you can name them the Eels and not explain it.
Right.
But they do.
They kept saying they're slippery little eels and all this other stuff.
Is that, did they? Okay, maybe that's the explanation, just that they're slippery.
Well, I don't know if it's like the main reason why. I just know that Michael Shannon said something about slippery eels at one point, and I was like, okay.
So I also have another question for you. See if you can explain this to me.
Shoot.
When they capture an eel, they burn your fingerprints,
yes,
and they sentence you, quote unquote, to some number of years without an identity.
Right.
Is the implication?
So I think,
what does that do?
I thought this was an interesting idea also in theory, but I don't know if it had been explained better, maybe it would have made sense. But what I was getting from it was that they're like they're burning or copying like your fingertips, like they're seeing that fingertip, and then I'm assuming everything in everyday life is controlled by fingertips. So maybe you can't buy things, maybe you can't, like, I don't know, vote. Maybe I don't know that there's voting in this world. But
these are all great explanations. We don't get any of them in the movie.
Right.
That would have been a perfect way to use Clarisse as a character, because she's been sentenced to this.
Right.
Show us what life is like. Now we see her living in a slum, but we don't see her unable to use, like you said, use public buildings. We don't see her unable to get a job or whatever it is. Like, we don't know what's being caused by the fingerprint thing, other than we just assume all of it, I guess.
Yeah.
It needed to be explained. I agree. Is what I'm saying. We needed to see an example. Them sentencing people to this fate, I don't know, it just didn't seem that bad. It was like,
yeah,
they're already living outside of the freaking society anyway with their like a contraband graffiti.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they were upstanding citizens up to that point. It didn't seem like most of them.
So when they first brought it out, I was like, "Holy shit, this is gonna be brutal!" I thought they were gonna like cut their fingers at the knuckle or something.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, that's nuts. That's crazy. That's so.
We don't even see like burnt fingertips or anything. We just hear them go and that's it.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna lose fingers, and I was like, that's not a bad idea.
Speaking of burnt, like, I wanted to see Michael Shannon's fucking hand, Beatty's hand, after holding it over that lighter.
He doesn't get burned, dude.
No, dude, show it to me. I want to see. I want to see barbecued palm, because if you hold your hand over an open flame that long, you don't have a fucking palm anymore. It's just gonna be like rib meat.
Right.
I don't know. It's not gonna be pretty.
Oh, I feel like this is a good point.
I didn't like that scene, man. It felt like very like fake macho. It was like, I'm such a badass man that I don't feel fire when it's on my skin. That's not how it works. And like, fine, your pain tolerance is crazy. Like, I could get behind that, but show us physical evidence of what you've gone through. Show us a nasty burned up palm. Why not, man?
Definitely should have been like an insert of the burnt hand. Before we move on, we want to tell you about something pretty exciting. We started a Patreon. We just see it as a way to connect even more with our listeners, and we're going to be bringing exclusive content to people who become patrons.
Yeah, man, it's a lot of fun. We've been having fun with it. We're doing bonus episodes. Well, we've done one so far. We're going to do another one. Our first one has our Infinity War reaction, and then our idea is to have like adaptation news. But we're also open to feedback. We're hoping people will give us ideas for what they'd like to hear from these bonus episodes. But we'll be recording another one here in June soon. I know we're going to talk about the casting of Aragorn for the new TV series, or young Aragorn. Maybe come up with some dream casts for that. Anyway, we're excited about it. We have 3 reward levels, $1, $3, and $10. Each gets you different things. The $10 gets you like some cool actual physical gear that we've been getting, bookmark, pin, magnet, sticker, stuff like that. Cool stuff. So if you want that, you can sign up for that for the highest level. But to get all access to all the content, $3 level will get you everything you need to get. You can get the secret Facebook group where we're going to have polls about future projects. You're going to get the exclusive bonus episodes like we talked about. All kinds of stuff like that. So if you want to check that out, just go to patreon.com/inktofilm, and you can see it all laid out there. But like you said, we're not trying to make money. We're trying to make this podcast pay for itself first and foremost, and then we're also trying to do improvements. So that's our goal eventually, right? Is to start doing upgrades.
Definitely. So yeah, if you wanted to go become a patron, we would highly appreciate that. That would be awesome. So again, that's patreon.com/inktofilm. Okay, so I guess we should touch on this really quickly because it's seemingly important to the story.
Sure.
About Montag's dad plot line. Like he was like having dreams.
I love the way you said it's seemingly important to the storyline. That's exactly my thoughts. Like, okay, this seems to be leading somewhere. First off, the first time you show it to us, I'm pretty sure we all know what's going on.
Exactly.
Like, okay. And instead, they show it like 5 more times, revealing a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And then it never really goes anywhere. I guess we're to believe that Montag uses this to like further his quest against,
this is like breaks
the
him out
firemen
of
and
it.
everything.
Yeah, like breaks him out of it.
It doesn't really connect. Like it feels like he's already down this path before he has this memory, so it couldn't have caused it.
Right.
I don't know. It, like you said, it seems important. It's given weight, but it just doesn't really connect. Like I don't connect the dots.
I guess maybe you could say, and I don't think this, but this is maybe something you could say, is that in the end, Montag does something that's different from the book. He has a moment where he could burn Beatty, and he's like something about mercy, and he's like
he burns Douglas.
Choice or something like that. He says something about choice. So maybe it was like his way of being like the better person and being like, you did this to my dad, but I'm gonna be the better person in this situation. And I feel like
you know who Douglas reminds me of a little bit.
Who's that?
Peter from Deadpool 2.
Yeah. Well, don't spoil.
I won't spoil it. But he just looks kind of like him. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Yep.
Somehow he showed up in Fahrenheit 451. Let me just say that.
Yep. So let's jump to, I guess right now I want to talk about Clarisse. Let's talk about her characterization and things that are different from the book and everything, and why we were not fans.
Yeah, so she is a traitor. We meet her because she's an informant. She's informing on eels and literally giving Beatty information, which Beatty is super handsy with her, which is really weird.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know what that was supposed to imply, other than like maybe he's abusive towards women. We don't see that elsewhere, but we do see it here.
Yeah.
And Montag's kind of like creepily standing there watching it happen. It was weirdly voyeuristic at times, or he was like, I don't know. It gave me weird vibes. But anyway, yeah, so she's not really a likable person because she's a rebel, but she doesn't even believe in it because she's selling the information.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because she's desperate, but like I said, that's not really shown to us. Mm-hmm. And that's why I wanted to give the actress a little bit of credit, because I did like the character, and the only reason I can explicitly it's her performance was good enough to where that person felt likable to me, even though the evidence we're given is that she's a traitor of her own, with her own cause.
I was just not a fan of the change, really. Like, Clarisse's character was important to me in the story. They might have all just named her something different in this, because Clarisse's character was important to me in the book because she represented the opposite of everything that was going on, right? She represented like rebellion, kind of, without being like outward. She kind of was just showing Montag like a different way of life, like a different way to live, and like seeing the happiness and seeing the things that were important that he was like blind to. There was none of that really in her character. Maybe the harmonica thing, or
the harmonica night is supposed to be, I think, the reference to that.
I don't know, man. It didn't even feel like even close. I don't even think you could call her Clarisse in terms of this, like the story. I mean, she's aged up, turns into a love story, and I don't know. We talked in the book episode. Maybe there was some sort of attraction or something like that, but
that's definitely the way they went this time. And like I know what they were doing. Like I know that she was part of this group, and then she moved away from it, and she tried to acclimate into regular society, and then now she's kind of going back. And then that provides Montag a path into this rebellious group. Like, I understand how she works narratively, but that doesn't make it good.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want people to think like I don't understand why she is this way in this movie. Like, I get it. I get what they were trying to do. I just don't think it worked very well.
Yeah.
You know what she also needs to have happen? And if you're going to write the story this way, she needs to have some sort of comeuppance for being a traitor. That never happens. She's never actually outed in front of anybody. I thought Beatty was going to do it, and then like he gets interrupted, right?
Yeah.
And that's what needs to happen, because otherwise that's an unaddressed betrayal that never goes anywhere. I
guess just the tension of her potentially being turned in for it, but even so, it doesn't pay off.
But that's nothing. Yeah, that's nothing actually happens because of it. That tension doesn't matter if nothing comes of it, right?
Right.
Oh, well, before just another little detail from early on in the movie, when they're at that like school scene, he's talking about books and these bad things and all this stuff, and then you referenced the emoticon literature, and I just wanted to mention, ask you, have you ever heard of Emoji Dick?
Emoji Dick? No.
Emoji Dick. It is a real book you can buy called Emoji Dick, and it's the entire novel of Moby Dick written entirely in emojis.
How long is it?
I don't know. Pretty long. It's like literally every word from every page basically has been transcribed.
Wow.
Into emojis.
I mean, good for that person. That's awesome.
It's cool. Pretty crazy. We were talking about this on one of my writing groups because I mentioned it and people didn't believe me, and I pulled it up on the internet. It's a real thing. So I thought that was funny because they basically referenced that. Although it's actually worse than what we saw on screen, because on their screens there was like words followed by emojis, right? Mm-hmm. Like interspersed with emojis.
Right.
Like a text message or something. That's not how the book is. It's actually just emojis.
I don't understand.
There are no words.
So you have to have like a key so you can translate?
No.
You just guess?
I mean, the key is the book.
So you just,
right?
I mean, that's
like
what
it's
I'm
an
saying. Like you
existing
just
book,
have to figure it out, and you're just like, I think I get what's happening.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll send it to you, and maybe we'll put a link in the show notes so people check it out. I think there's at least a sample of it. I don't think you can read the whole book, but you can see what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's move on.
So around this time, Montag gets pulled into like this revolution, and interestingly enough, this is in the first book episode. I talked about how I thought that Montag might like join an existing resistance, and like become like really important to this. And I thought that was like a trope maybe the book would go down, and less of a trope for the book because it was written 60 years ago, 70 years ago. Yeah. But they went down that path in the movie, which I just thought, I was like, oh, of course he's going to join the rebellion that's established, and we're going down this path. Which,
by the way, it's kind of the inverse of the Matrix. Everybody in normal society wears like black leather, and the rebellious group wears normal clothing.
Yeah.
Like, I like black, man, but oof.
Have you seen Equilibrium?
I have seen Equilibrium, yeah.
Did you get a little bit of that from this movie?
I definitely did.
Yeah.
That movie was, I think, made in the 80s or maybe 90s, early 90s.
Equilibrium?
Something like that. Yeah.
That's got to be 2000. It's got to be like 2000.
Was it really?
Got to be.
All right. Anyway. My point being, it was, I think, I don't know, it was lower budget, I believe, than this movie. And I don't know, just, I guess I get a little bit of that. Like, one of my quibbles with that movie is that world doesn't feel super real. But yeah, I definitely got similar vibes, like dystopian... dystopian leather, whatever that is. Like,
yeah, there's got to be leather. That's a genre, right?
Yeah, dystopian. It should be.
So I feel like one of the major things that I think could have helped this film is having the wife who was in the book that was not anywhere in the movie. I felt like the wife was
Mildred, I think was her name.
Mildred, yeah. I feel like Mildred was our entrance into this world, and that was like our way of seeing what a normal person looked like in this world. And I think that that's what this movie was missing, was seeing more people living in this world and what they're going through and how they've brought this on themselves.
You might notice that Beatty and Montag both had zero home life. They had no family, they had no children, no wife, nothing. And I agree with you, man. Like, we need to see what they're like. If we're going to see what they're like as firemen, we need to see what they're like at home. And like, we do, but it's just them both like being conflicted in their own, like, solitude. And that's not nearly as affecting as seeing them interact with another human being. Now, you could say the stand-in is their Alexa, I forget what it was called, like Yuri or something, stand-in, which was, appropriately kind of creepy, and it felt like it was trying to say that I was trying to say that Amazon is listening kind of thing. So I liked that, and it was creepy, but I that's not a stand-in for a character. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think we still needed a character. I agree with you.
While we're talking about the home life, we should definitely talk about the fact that Beatty was writing little scraps of paper. And this is what I think you were talking about before, but I really enjoyed that he was doing this, and I felt like this is part of the reason why I bought Beatty as a character. Had this not been in the movie, I don't know if he would have felt as real. Just this writing of the paper and the fact that he is conflicted and he kind of says something to Montag more than he does even in the book, that he's conflicted, but he's fighting. He always fights his urges and all that stuff. I just thought that was a highlight for me, like a welcome part.
When I was mentioning the complexity they added or they brought to that character, like it's like they heightened that stuff from the book because there was similar vibes. But yeah, the idea that he has felt the temptation, that he fully understands why Montag is interested, in what's in those books, because he's been interested himself, and he's given into that temptation, and he's clearly read some of them, and he kind of pawns it off as like because of his position and what he was allowed to read. But we're seeing that he's doing it above and beyond when he's writing this stuff down at home. So yeah, like I liked that part of his character, the idea that he truly understood Montag, and they have a very father-son relationship in this movie, which was cool. And like I felt his love-hate for Montag too, right? Like right. He does love him in like a weird father-son way, but then he also is furious with him for betraying and for daring to do the thing that he was unable to do, like right. he has the bravery to do the thing that Beatty didn't ever do.
And I think there was a cool payoff to all of this with Beatty is in the end, we get Montag letting the bird free. And at first I'm like, come on, is he really not going to burn it? And then I realized, I'm like, oh, okay, this is his moment where he's like, he had the chance to burn the bird, but he hesitates and he doesn't do it. And I think it's less of a hesitation and more of him saying like, what's going to happen now? You know what I mean? Like he's so curious and he's always been tempted by this stuff. So he's like, he lets it go, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That was the way I read that too. Like he had a moment where he could have burned it and he didn't. That does, I mean, this is the final scene, but hey, we're jumping around. Does Beatty burn Montag in the final scene? Do you think it's obvious and clear that that's what happened, or do you think there's any chance that something else happens?
I think he burned him. What do you think?
I think you could argue, and I think in a superior film where people loved it and wanted to debate these kind of things, I think there would be a debate about whether or not Beatty burns himself. Because Montag, at the last we see him, you can see the flames kind of reflected in his face, and you could say that's the flames approaching him, but you could also say that's him seeing, Beatty burning himself in front of him.
Right.
Now we don't see him like turn the nozzle towards himself or anything like that, so you'd have to imagine that happens without showing us. But all we see is him scream, and then we get a reverse shot of the flames on Montag's face, right? So it's also, we don't actually see the fire leaving coming straight at him, I don't think.
Yeah, we get like he's like pointing it with the flames. It doesn't shoot out, but then we get like the reaction shot basically where Montag's eyes are closed, and then like I think the very last shot is like flames. So it's not like he's being hit by flames. It's just like flames take over the screen, and you're not really sure.
Right. Yeah, could be burns. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, this movie doesn't really make me want to think about it because I don't really care enough to. But, in a different movie, I think this is a debate that people could have. I think
that was definitely the filmmaker's intent, was like, I would like to leave some sort of doubt or something here. That's why he didn't show it,
Right.
So let's just catch back up to where we actually are right now. Basically, Montag joins up with this revolutionary group, and he is kind of like, I'll help you guys do whatever, and he has to like get this transmitter or something. He goes to get the transmitter and has a confrontation with Beatty, and then Beatty's like, "Are you back?" And Montag's like, "I'm back," to the firefighting force or whatever, and they go to Montag's house. Montag doesn't know, but they go to a mission or whatever. They're going on a call, and they get to Montag's house, and
that's right out of the book.
Right.
Yeah, that leads to him burning Douglas. We do get a pretty cool speech in there from Beatty. There's a little bit of monologuing by that character from right out of the book, and I think that when they're in the library, I think is the two big moments for him, and I thought he nailed both. Michael Shannon nailed both of those moments.
I think so too. He did a fairly good job of basically saying something similar to the speeches in the books. I think the book speeches are superior, but that's another scene that we should talk about. Is that the scene? It's basically straight out of the book. They
oh
go
my
to
god! Before we get ahead, sorry, we gotta interrupt you because I just remembered an amazing line that made me laugh out loud, which I rarely do. But Michael Shannon is talking to Douglas, who's just tailed Montag and seen him get in the truck, and then, and he says, and I quote, "The next time I tell you to follow someone, you crawl into their asshole. You hear me?"
Yeah, I remember that part. It's pretty funny.
Oh, so good.
Michael Shannon saying this stuff is what really sells it too. Like I can see.
And on the flip side of that, early on, Montag says, "If you hide from me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize," which I was like, oh no, you didn't just fucking copy Reservoir Dogs and like change a couple words and act like you wrote a brilliant line.
Yeah.
Like literally, Reservoir Dogs, if you shoot me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize. First off, better line. Second off, like that's not an homage. That's like a fucking theft. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
I would just bad.
Yeah.
It didn't fit anything about this movie either. It felt weird.
Yeah, I'm sure that they thought that it was a reference, but that was definitely leaned way too far into just basically stealing the line. There's no tip of the hat or anything in there. It's basically just saying like, look how cool this line is.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I have this. Yeah, look at this sweet line I came up with all on my own.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the scene in the library with the self-immolating woman.
Okay.
Basically, very similar to what happens in the book, right?
Yeah, very similar. Yeah. I liked how she had books strapped to her chest like they were IEDs or whatever. That was pretty cool.
I thought she was going to pull out like some sort of... I thought she was like opening that jacket or whatever to reveal like you said, like a bomb. Or I thought she was going to have something attached to her that would light her on fire. Like she was ready to light herself on fire.
Yeah, it was just books strapped to her chest.
It's pretty awesome. After we're jumping ahead again back to where Beatty and they're at Montag's house.
I don't know, man. I'm all over the place with this summary. I just want to talk about certain scenes that...
I hope that if you're listening to this and you haven't seen the movie, you don't care because this is you're not going to get the story from our descriptions here.
Honestly, this movie just doesn't feel like it's worth getting into every scene. You know what I mean? Like that's not going to be interesting, I don't think. But there is a scene I want to talk about because it was interesting to me. One of the standouts actually, when they're in the firehouse and Montag, Beatty commands him to read from the book. I think it's Crime and Punishment.
I think so.
Anyway, he's reading it, and then Beatty starts lighting it on fire while he's reading it from the top, and it starts burning down. And that scene of him holding it, that was a really cool. Like that looked cool.
That was awesome.
And then him like closing it, putting out the fire, and then like telling him to open it up again and lighting it again. And it was obvious he was holding a real burning book too. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't faked, which I thought was cool too. Right? Like that looked good.
Mm-hmm. And as Montag was reading, Beatty was like mouthing the words that he was reading because he like knew it that well and had he was that familiar with it. I don't know. That was probably I think you're right. That was probably honestly the best scene. Maybe that in the library, looking around at the books and he's like, "You may never see this again in your whole career" and all that stuff.
Yeah, and that was a genuine moment for me as someone who loves books. You know, I love like a room like that full of books is just a treasure trove. You know,
right.
And seeing that is really cool. Now he does see that again later in the movie. At the Eel's place. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool.
I have a shout out to something that I thought was cool was when Clarisse got the book from Montag when they first met up and like he hands it to her and she like smells it. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like that is a thing that like if you're familiar with that smell and then books,
Oh yeah, book lovers know. The smell of new book smells good. The smell of old book smells good.
Right.
It's all great. Okay, so when they're at... Now, I'm not saying this was good. This is just I wanted to mention it. They have him act like he's going to stab a fireman. He like charges at the guy to stab him, and then the last second, the guy hops out and he's like, "No, don't do it, don't do it." And then the guy pulled the mask off, and I was like, they let that get really close. I don't think I'd want to sign up for that job. Somebody charging at you with intent to kill, and you're gonna hop out and just say stop, and hope that he like doesn't actually do it.
Well, I literally as the music is building in that part, I looked over at Caitlin and I was just like, all right, here we go. And then as it gets really close, I was like, stop, and I literally said it at the exact same time as the guy popped out and said stop because I knew somebody was gonna. There's no way that this is gonna go down like that.
I did like him practicing by stabbing the bag. That felt very real.
Yeah.
Moments like that needed to be more in this movie, where
sure.
I felt like this was a real person.
Exactly.
I like the idea of him psyching himself up to do it. That was cool.
Definitely. It might have been an actor's choice, you know what I mean? Might have been just like...
Yeah. It's funny how that happens, right? Like, we want to give all the credit to the actors. Who knows? Maybe, that might have been the director having a good moment.
A lot of the time, I find myself wanting to give the filmmaker the benefit of the doubt. I'm always like, I'm sure it was this. I'm sure it was that.
Did you see a very particular book in Montag's collection when they pulled it out of his house to burn it?
Yeah, I saw it. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, I was like, I bet James was happy about that.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was like some sort of choice. You know what I mean? Like my fan fiction. It's like if you fan fiction for a movie I didn't like. Then Michael B. Jordan was like, I want to have Harry Potter in there or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it very well easily could have been somebody just saying like, I wanted it, the filmmaker or whoever. It is like one of the biggest books ever. So I guess it.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense that it'd be in there. And I was happy to see at least one, like, because otherwise it was a lot of classic literature.
Right.
As someone who knows a lot of books and, you know what I mean, reads a lot and is very into that world, I was on the lookout for new novels in there, and there was very few of them.
Right.
In fact, Harry Potter was one of the only ones I noticed. Now I didn't like stop it and read every spine when there was big piles. But
we can do that next time we watch it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I mean, yeah, when I saw it, I definitely shouted out. I was like, "Oh, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone."
I'm glad. I also did.
So let's start wrapping up and start talking about the ending here, because when he doesn't burn Beatty and he burns Douglas instead, did you think? I felt like that was a mistake. Like, just burn Beatty there. I know what they were building. They were building to something different, but it's just like that's the oh shit moment in the book where he's like he burns it, and then like everything that happens after is like setting up for.
I thought it was going to be setting the table for him. Maybe burning Beatty later. But yeah, he doesn't burn Beatty at all. In fact, possibly the opposite happens. Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. It felt like they were thinking, what is the expected thing here?
Right.
What is it that audiences are used to? What is it that audiences are going to be happy with? Let's do that.
I will say, in general, I think it's a good idea to subvert expectations, but you should subvert expectations and also.
I think they were meeting them. They were trying to meet expectations.
Oh, you think they were like, let's not burn?
Yeah, because I think audiences don't expect Montag to burn Beatty in that moment. That's why it's shocking when it happens in the book.
That's true, yeah.
But what they do expect is for him to maybe, I don't know, like, I guess Douglas maybe was a little bit unexpected too, but it's not Beatty. That's right. Not, you know what I mean? Like, Beatty is such a major character in the book, and when he dies, it's like, oh shit, that major character died, right? And if Beatty had died right at that moment,
it's the same thing here. If they had killed him, he's such an important character to the narrative that you're like, oh shit, like this movie's like in the end game now. Like Beatty's gone. Like what happens now? It leaves you like on your back foot.
That doesn't happen.
Right.
So I think it was the safer and more boring choice.
Yep.
And I literally think Douglas was introduced as a terrible character just so that he could burn somebody, because it's such an iconic part from the book, and they could say, well, he burned somebody.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But after all that goes down, he like throws down a grenade and like shoots it with the flamethrower and gets away.
Yeah, it gets away on foot, which, when I read the book that was written in the 50s, made a lot more sense, but in a modernized tech, like I wanted to see something, I don't know, it was too easy for him to just run away on the street.
Well, he eventually didn't.
They come and pick him up, I think.
Yeah, they pick him up at some point, I think. But anyway, regardless, he joins back up with the rebels, and or he's on his way to join back up with the rebels, and somehow, even though Douglas is burned alive, all those firefighters get in their fire truck and beat them back to this place, to this like hideout where the black hole area where all the eels are holed up with the DNA bird, the mutant DNA bird.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and that character, by the way, who is also like the keeper of the bird, we didn't talk about him.
Yeah.
Interesting. He's memorized like so many thousands of books. We get the idea again from the novel of people memorizing books and becoming them. It was a little bit ham-fisted though. It was like, I don't know, like it was almost like they were leaning on it too hard for me. And and again, once again, I just don't know if I believe that people can do that. Like, I guess I believe that there are people who exist who can do that. Right. But I don't believe that they're easy to find and that you can gather a bunch of them together, like without it being crazy.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting that he like maybe died at the end. when he was like in the barn thing. I don't know if he died, but he was like passed out or whatever on the floor.
That guy,
The
yeah,
keeper, yeah.
I guess he did.
Because it was like that was like I was expecting
books.
him to kind of be like the Book of Eli. Like I thought he was going to be like the person carrying on.
It's the burb of Eli.
The bird of Eli.
Oh, I did want to say at one point, no, twice in the movie, they say, "Time to burn for America again." And they say it like a couple times, like it's like really important. Mm-hmm. And it was very clearly, I think, them trying to say, this is very similar to Make America Great Again. And yeah, fuck MAGA. Like, I'm with them.
Right.
You know?
I mean, yeah, good for
I get it.
I guess it's like
it.
a, silver lining is that we kind of got them saying fuck MAGA.
But it doesn't work.
No,
it sounds terrible. And the way they it's so heavy-handed. And it's so obvious. It's like they're trying to shoehorn it into the movie. They're like, you know what we should do? We should have them say something that's very similar to MAGA. And you know, even if it doesn't make sense, we're going to fucking put it in there. Time to burn for America again. Like, again makes no sense. Like, that again should not be there.
We know why the again is in there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the only reason. It's so obvious.
Right.
Like, we can all get together and say that was kind of stupid.
Yeah. I agree. I think that I like I said before, I like some of the social commentary that was trying to be said. I just don't know if it was pulled off every time. The final scene, they show up to the eel place and the whole place is engulfed in flame. And Montag like runs in and like finds the bird and like starts attaching the transponder and like is gonna release it. And we talked about it before. He releases it as Beatty is there, and Beatty sees it, chooses not to burn it, and it flies away, and we get like a couple of minutes of a bird flying in.
Which, by the way, there is like a world where there's like still forests and fields, and it actually looks pretty nice out there.
Yeah.
You get out of the city. It was like Cleveland, so apparently Cleveland's just terrible, and everything else is fine. Although I guess that is kind of true in the book too, right? Like whenever he goes out into the countryside, everything's like seems to be pretty good to go. But yeah, I don't know. It felt like almost like scenes from a different movie when they showed that bird flying at the end.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It almost felt like footage from, it felt like stock footage of some birds flying a little bit. All right. So I feel like we pretty much covered everything, man, at this point. We've talked about basically everything I wanted to touch on. So if you're cool, I think we should wrap here.
Yeah, man. Sounds good to me.
I think at the end, we should talk about one last thing. And I think we should just kind of mention one more positive thing that we felt about this movie since we were both pretty down on it. So
okay.
Think about that.
I'll try. I'll desperately try.
Okay. So yeah, we'll talk about that at the very end.
So we mentioned it in the middle, but we just wanted to shout out our Patreon again one last time. And also a big shout out to Steve E. Or Stephen E. He's a $10 patron. He's been with us from the beginning. Huge supporter of the podcast. And, we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
So if you wanted to become a patron as well, just go to patreon.com/inktofilm. And speaking of Patreon, our patron has just found out that we are going to be doing Jurassic Park next. Super excited about that, man. How about you?
I cannot wait, man. I love the movie. I haven't read the book in a very long time. I read it a long time ago. So I'm excited to get back.
You have read the book?
Yeah, a long time ago, though. Like,
I've never read it, so this is going to be my first time.
Yeah.
That's cool. That'll be a unique dynamic I don't think we've had yet. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, man.
Looking forward to it, man. One of my favorite movies. So, I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Definitely.
But yeah, we hope you guys join us for that too.
Also, if you wanted to connect with us, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's at inktofilm. We're active on there, so anything you send our way, we will definitely see.
And another way to give us feedback is to send us an email to inktofilm@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought of this movie. I'm definitely going to be curious to know. I bet there's going to be people who liked it and are going to think they were full of shit. Every movie that's going to be true. Or did you think we were right about certain things? I just want to know. Send us an email. We'll read it. We'll check it out. We love to get feedback like that.
Definitely, yeah. If you disagree with us, we would love to hear a different viewpoint, because maybe you'll change our minds on some stuff. So if you wanted to help the podcast out other than becoming a patron, you could rate and review. That helps us out a lot. It helps people see our podcast. It helps us just get more eyes on there. On iTunes or Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts, it would be very helpful.
Yeah, I just found out that we have reviews from other countries on our iTunes, but you can't view them without switching it It's complicated. But the point is, if you listen to this podcast outside of America, it'd be a huge bonus to leave us a review, because we might not have any reviews, and you know what I mean, in that part of the world. So any review would be huge.
We wanted to say thank you to Ross Bugden for the use of our intro and outro music. All right, let's end on a positive note. I feel like we've talked about a lot
positive.
of stuff.
I forgot.
So positive note. I don't know. End with something fun, something interesting we haven't talked about that you wanted to end on.
All right, you go first. I got to think.
All right, my first thing is, although I think that it's less powerful that Montag had like VHSs and technology hidden in his like air vent instead of having books, I don't think it kind of draws the same emotion by him having all that stuff hidden. I did think it was cool that he had like Taxi Driver on like a Blockbuster VHS video, and then like he had like film stock. He was like looking at the film for a second, and it was Singing in the Rain. So it was like, okay, I can always get behind some movie references.
I don't know if this is positive or not, but there was a moment where I thought that you were going to be right, and that they were going to destroy the city. When the order comes down to burn the city, I was like, oh shit, they're going to like burn the city. I thought we were about to have literally like a scene where the entire city's on fire. And instead it was like, nah, they just kind of went out and rounded up a bunch more eels, I guess, and burned more books. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, I thought they were going to be like, just burn it all, and then in there you'll get all the eels, but like, fuck everybody.
Right. That would have been powerful, man. It would have been interesting.
Would have been dark. It would have been interesting. Would have been similar to the book with the bombs. But that's not what it is. I don't know if that counts as positive, but I thought you were almost right.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it for this time, guys. Till next time, I'm James.
And I'm Luke. See you for Jurassic Park.
Thanks for listening.